She told me it was about compassion, that he had no one else, no family, no friends who cared enough to sit with him through chemo. And because I loved her, because I wanted to be the kind of husband who didn't let jealousy blur the line between empathy and ego, I said okay. The first time she brought up Peter, her ex, it was late at night, after we'd just watched some forgettable Netflix movie. She turned to me, face bare, the soft overhead light making her look younger, and said, "I ran into Peter's sister today. He's sick, really sick." I didn't say anything right away. I barely remembered Peter. Some guy she dated in college. An artist, maybe. The kind of man who wore scarves indoors and quoted Bukowski. He wasn't relevant to our life. "Cancer," she said. "Stage 3. He's alone." Still, I didn't answer. She put a hand on my arm, that practiced softness she always used when broaching something delicate. "He's scared, Jordan. And I know how that sounds, but he was once a huge part of my life. I can't just ignore this." "What are you saying?" I asked, though I already knew. "I want to visit him. Just to talk. Bring him some things." He asked, "You've been in contact?" She blinked, looked guilty for half a second, then covered it with a tired smile. "Only recently. He found me online. Through the foundation. I think he doesn't have anyone else." I nodded. Because what was I supposed to say? No. That my wife couldn't visit a dying man. That I didn't trust her? So I said, "Sure. I get it." And she smiled with relief, kissed me, and whispered, "Thank you. You always understand." That was the first visit. I didn't ask much when she came back. She looked exhausted, emotionally drained, and said things like, "It's so strange seeing someone like that. Someone who once made you feel so much, and now he's just frail and afraid." I told her I was proud of her compassion. The visits became regular. Once a week, then twice. Sometimes she'd stay late, come home after midnight, saying the hospital was far, or he'd been vomiting a lot, and she didn't want to leave him alone. I watched her. I watched the bags under her eyes deepen, her mood swings sharpen. She said it was the stress, the helplessness of watching someone fade. I offered to go with her once, thinking maybe it would give me peace of mind. She refused. "He's not comfortable around strangers," she said. "Even you. He barely talks when I'm not alone with him." It bothered me, but I let it go. Then came the money. She said Peter needed help with medical expenses, that his insurance had lapsed, and the foundation couldn't cover it. "Just a few hundred," she said. "I'll track it. It's all transparent." We had a joint account. I saw the transfers. At first, small, $200, $300. Then $1,000. Once, $2,000. I said nothing. I told myself it wasn't worth the suspicion. That this was what support looked like. Real love. Standing by someone who did the right thing, even when it was hard. But then things started breaking. She became defensive, distant, short-tempered. I'd ask how Peter was doing, and she'd shrug. "He's the same." I asked if he was improving. Not really. I asked if she needed to take a break. Why would I do that? I asked if she thought maybe she was doing more than she should, given their history. That question got silence. I noticed her phone always face down. That she started locking it. That she deleted messages more often. But still, I didn't confront her. I just waited. Until one night. She came home looking almost happy. Relaxed. Too relaxed for someone who'd just watched a man suffer through stage 3 cancer. She dropped her keys, kicked off her shoes, and said, "I'm going to shower." It was a long night. But her phone buzzed. Just once. Just enough for me to see the preview on the lock screen. I hated saying goodbye. "When can I see you again?" No name. Just a message. I stared at it. Then looked at the bathroom door. The sound of running water. Her humming. Some quiet, off-key melody. I opened the phone. She used my birthday as the passcode. The message thread was long. Weeks of exchanges. Photos. Not of him sick and frail, but of them. Sitting close on a bench. Hands touching. Smiling. Jokes. Memories. Plans. He wasn't dying. He wasn't even sick. At least, not in the way she described. He had been in the hospital. Once. A scare. A mild diagnosis. He was out now. Living in a rented flat downtown. She'd been visiting him there. Spending nights. Using my money, my trust, my silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I took screenshots. I emailed them to myself. Then I sat down, stared at our wedding photo on the wall, and let the silence stretch. She came out in a towel, hair damp, smiling. I smiled back. "How was Peter?" I asked. She paused. "Only a second." then said, "Rough. He's not doing well." I nodded. "I'm glad he has you." She blinked, then walked past me to the bedroom. I stayed on the couch a little longer and made a plan. The first time I went to Peter's apartment, I brought nothing with me but silence. It was a modest building on the east side. Nothing upscale, but definitely not where you'd expect a man on the verge of death to be living. The buzzer was broken, so I waited for someone to exit and slipped in behind them. Third floor, apartment 3B. Same as in the Uber receipts forwarded to her email. She had no idea I could still access that account. I didn't knock. I just stood outside and listened. Laughter. Not TV laughter. Not sitcom noise. Real laughter. Hers. Then his voice. Low, smooth, younger than I remembered. He said something I couldn't quite hear. She laughed again, louder this time, and then there was silence. The kind that stretches in the space between people who know each other too well. I didn't stay long. I didn't need to. I wasn't there to catch them in the act. I was there to be sure. And now I was. Back home, I spent the night sorting files. Phone records. Bank statements. Message backups. I didn't go through everything. Just enough to know I wasn't crazy. Just enough to know I was done being the fool. But revenge, that's a tricky thing. You can't go in loud. You can't go in swinging. That's how you lose everything. That's how you end up the bitter ex while they play victim and twist the narrative. No, I had to be smart and precise. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer I'd once helped with a small music licensing case. She owed me. I explained the situation in neutral terms: infidelity, misuse of funds, emotional manipulation, and asked what I'd need to prepare to protect myself. She told me 3 things. Document everything. Say nothing yet. Start separating finances. So I opened a new account. Quietly moved my savings. Froze our joint credit card. Ordered paper statements only. The next thing I did was create a file titled Mercy, where I stored every piece of evidence. Photos, screenshots, voicemails, and a journal, dated, with entries of everything I noticed, everything she said, every time she came home late or lied about a visit. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I played the role she needed. The supportive husband, the understanding man. The one who kept asking, "How's Peter doing?" with a sympathetic nod. And she kept lying. Beautifully, effortlessly. There was even a night she cried. Said Peter was getting worse. Said he'd asked to see her more. That he didn't want to die alone. I nodded. Told her to take whatever time she needed. But while she was at his bedside, I was meeting with a private investigator. I showed him everything I had. Told him I needed confirmation. I needed timestamps, locations, images I could show a judge if this ever went legal. He didn't ask why. Just took the file, quoted a rate, and said, "Give me a week." 7 days passed. In that week, she kissed me on the forehead 3 times, told me she loved me twice, and withdrew $600 from our joint account. When the investigator came back, he handed me a thumb drive. "She's not just seeing him," he said. "They're planning something." That caught my attention. "What kind of something?" He shrugged. "I overheard a bit. She's talking about moving in together. She's talking about taking your name off certain documents. She doesn't think you'll fight." I didn't react, just nodded. And that night, when she was asleep beside me, breathing evenly and peacefully, I sat in the dark and watched the videos. One of them showed her and Peter at a small cafe, holding hands. Another had them walking down a grocery aisle, laughing, arms brushing. One video had audio, her saying, "He has no idea. He really thinks I'm still going to the hospital." I didn't sleep that night, but I wasn't angry. Not in the way I expected. I was clear, focused. She wanted a life without me? Fine. But she wasn't going to build it on my money, my name, or my silence. It was time to begin the next phase. You'd be surprised how many things you can untangle in a marriage without ever raising your voice. The truth is, people like my wife, people who lie as naturally as they breathe, don't expect you to be quiet. They expect rage, screaming, slam doors. They don't know what to do when you just nod and smile and let them keep going. That's how I started pulling the thread. First, I pretended to forget my work schedule. Told her my boss had moved things around, that I'd be working from home a few days. She didn't like that. Tried to mask it, of course, but I could see it in the way her eyes darted when I said it. She smiled, said, "Oh, okay," but her fingers twitched when she grabbed her coffee mug. She was calculating, rescheduling things in her head. That same afternoon, she left to see Peter. I waited 20 minutes, then followed. Not close, not suspicious, just far enough to make sure she didn't double back. She drove to the same apartment on the east side, parked 2 blocks away, checked her reflection in the mirror, then walked in without hesitation. I took a photo, date and time. Then I went home and began my quiet campaign. She had a small studio space downtown she rented under her name, a little hub where she claimed to be launching her own thing someday. It was vague. She always talked in vague terms when it came to her goals. Branding, consulting, creative direction, a lot of fluff. But I knew she stored backup phones and files there. She wasn't dumb enough to keep anything incriminating in our house. I waited until she mentioned needing to go there for a few hours one Saturday. She left early, said she'd grab lunch on the way back. I drove to the building 10 minutes later. She never changed the keypad code. It was still Peter's birthday. Inside, I found what I needed. Not texts or videos. That would have been too easy, but plans. On a corkboard, scribbled on sticky notes and scraps of printouts. Her name next to his. Launch joint pitch deck. Reach out to Sam for PR angle. And underlined in red. Secure brand narrative, post-divorce? Post-divorce. So she was planning on leaving me. I wasn't even shocked at that point. But what struck me most was how calm she had been about it all. How long had she been smiling in my face while laying groundwork behind my back? The hardest part wasn't knowing she was going to leave. It was realizing she expected me to still be useful while she did it. I took photos of everything. I didn't touch a thing. I left the room exactly as I found it and quietly slipped out. That night, I made dinner. Her favorite, pasta with garlic cream sauce, a glass of red wine. She came home, exhausted, and I greeted her with a kiss and a joke. She laughed. She actually laughed. And said, "You're too good to me." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "I know." She talked about Peter's condition over dinner, said it was deteriorating, that maybe she'd be needed more soon, that we should mentally prepare for that. She even suggested she stay overnight, once in a while, just in case. I told her I supported her completely, that I was proud of her. She looked so relieved it almost made me sick. The next day, I met with an old friend from college who now worked in PR. We grabbed coffee, and I told him I needed help crafting a narrative. Not a public one, a private one. A file, just in case, that documented emotional manipulation and financial deception. Something I could send to my lawyer, or a judge, or anyone who might try to spin a different version of events. He helped, gave me structure, even connected me to a woman he knew who worked in image consulting, someone who specialized in reputation containment, the kind of person people call when influencers screw up. That woman, Stacy, was a genius. She looked over everything and said, "If she's planning a rebrand, I can kill it before it breathes. Just say the word." I said the word. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in strategic collapse. Calls were made. Quiet ones. Opportunities dried up. Brands that had been warming up to her stopped responding. The PR guy she wanted to pitch to ghosted her completely. She noticed. She started getting twitchy, snapping at little things, slamming doors, blaming the universe. Then she had a meltdown. I found her in the kitchen one night, crying over her phone. "I don't get it," she said. "I had meetings lined up. 2 sponsorship deals. Now nothing. Everyone's going dark." I put on my best confused face. "That's weird. You've been working so hard." She nodded, wiped her eyes. "Maybe I'm just cursed." I almost said no, just cruel. But I kept that to myself. The next morning, I made coffee. We sat at the table in silence. She looked like she hadn't slept. Then she said it. "I think we need to talk." Here it comes, I thought. The speech. "I've been thinking," she continued. "Maybe we rushed into marriage. Maybe we lost ourselves in this idea. And now I don't know who I am anymore." I nodded slowly. "That's fair. I'm not saying I don't love you. You're saying you want out." She hesitated. "Maybe. I don't know." "You do," I said softly. "And that's okay." She blinked. "Really? Of course. If you're unhappy, I won't force you to stay." She seemed surprised. Like she thought I'd fight harder. Like she needed me to argue, to give her a villain to play against. But I gave her nothing. Later that day, I spoke to my lawyer. We drafted the first version of the separation agreement. And I began preparing for the final reveal. She didn't leave right away. I think she expected things to get messy. That I'd chase after her, beg for an explanation, explode with rage. But when I didn't, when I agreed calmly to a pause in our marriage, she hesitated. People like her don't handle grace well. They mistake it for weakness. Over the next week, she moved a few things out. A suitcase here, a garment bag there. She said she was staying with a friend to clear her head. I knew better. She was staying with Peter, but now I had no reason to follow her. I had everything I needed. She left me the apartment. I'll give you space, she said, as if she were the noble one, sacrificing her comfort for my healing. She even hugged me at the door and whispered, "You're a good man, Jordan." I just lost myself. I smiled. "I hope you find your way back." She left with a soft click of the door. That was the last time she entered our home as my wife. In the days that followed, she began trying to revive her personal brand. I watched from a distance. Social media posts full of vague quotes about new beginnings, finding your voice, and healing through chaos. She uploaded a new headshot, started tagging venues and production studios. She posted a grainy selfie with Peter, captioned, "Some people never leave your soul, no matter how much time passes." I didn't comment, didn't like the post, didn't block her either. I wanted her to see my silence. It would worry her more than anger. Then came the real blow. Stacy, the PR fixer, reached out to her under a pseudonym. "Interested in representing you. Heard great things. Want to schedule a call." My wife took the bait. The call was recorded. Legal in this state, as long as one party consents. Stacy played it cool, asked questions. What were her goals? What message did she want to lead with? How honest was she willing to be? My wife lied through all of it. Said she'd been in a loveless marriage. That I was controlling. That I'd refused to let her pursue her passion. That Peter had been her safe place during the storm. Then Stacy asked, "Did your husband know about Peter at all during your marriage?" She paused. "No. He was too self-absorbed to notice." I watched the recording that night with a glass of whiskey in my hand and my lawyer on the line. "You ready?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "I'm ready." We filed the paperwork the next morning. Along with the agreement was a statement. Her misuse of funds, her deceit, her extramarital affair. I didn't ask for the house. Didn't ask for anything material. But I did ask for a clause, non-disparagement in public or professional channels. My lawyer said, "She's going to lose it. Let her." It didn't take long. She called that night. First time in 2 weeks. "What is this?" she snapped. "You're filing for divorce? And now I can't even mention my own story publicly?" "You already did," I said. "What?" "I saw your interview. I heard everything you said about me. Just because you think I'm quiet doesn't mean I'm not listening." There was a long silence. "You set me up," she finally said, low and bitter. "No," I said. "You set yourself up. I just documented it." She went quiet again, then said, "You're trying to ruin me." I let the pause hang. Then, softly, "I just wanted you to stop using me." I could hear her breathing hard, like she was trying to think of something to throw back, something to wound me with. But there was nothing left to twist. I had stripped her of her narrative. She ended the call without another word. The next day, her Instagram account went private. A week later, the venue she'd tagged in her last post issued a cancellation notice. Creative differences, they said. Peter's own circle began to thin out, too. Whether he knew I was behind it or not didn't matter. His connections didn't want the heat. And once her opportunities dried up, so did his loyalty. I got a message from one of his old friends, a producer I'd helped years ago. "Dude's toxic." She dragged him down with her. I didn't respond, just archived it. One night, a month after the papers were finalized, she showed up at my building. She looked tired, pale, makeup uneven. She hadn't dressed for war, no heels, no designer coat, just jeans and a faded sweater. She asked if we could talk. I let her in, not out of kindness, but curiosity. She sat on the same couch where she'd once told me Peter was dying. "I don't know what happened," she said. "I think you do." She rubbed her hands together, nervous. "You think you're better than me now?" "No," I said. "I've always been better than this." She didn't cry. I don't think she could anymore. She asked if there was any way we could fix things. I made mistakes. I was confused. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I looked her in the eye and said, "You used my love like a rope to pull yourself somewhere better. And when you thought you were high enough, you cut it." She opened her mouth, closed it. "You're not here because you love me," I said. "You're here because the rope snapped. And you're falling." She left without another word. And I didn't watch her go. I never thought watching someone unravel would feel so quiet. No dramatic screams, no grand gestures, no final scene of someone pounding on the door in the rain. Just silence. Long, creeping, suffocating silence. That was how she disappeared from my life, bit by bit, week by week. After our final conversation on the couch, she didn't call again. Not once. I thought maybe she'd show up at some event or try to bump into me somewhere convenient, but nothing. I think even she knew the game was over. Whatever power she thought she had evaporated with the contracts she lost and the people who stopped answering her emails. I didn't even need to press the final button. She imploded under the weight of her own ambitions. Peter, meanwhile, tried to salvage what he could. I heard through a mutual connection that he'd started distancing himself from her. Apparently, she'd gotten too intense, too needy, too loud. The irony wasn't lost on me. She had burned every safety net on the climb up and then realized too late that she had no parachute on the way down. I started taking walks again, something I hadn't done in years. I found this small park near the river, quiet, mostly used by old couples and dog walkers. I'd sit on a bench with a notebook, jotting down whatever came to mind, song ideas, beats, little phrases of dialogue or lyrics. Music had always been my safe place, but now it felt like something else entirely. A map, maybe, or a mirror, or both. The first track I finished after the divorce was something slow, dark, but clear. It didn't have a name at first, just a mood. I sent it anonymously to a friend in the indie scene. A week later, he told me it had been picked up by a rising vocalist in LA, no questions asked. She loved it, said it sounded like a storm that finally decided to end. That made me smile. Then came a second track, then a third. It was like clearing out a room that had been locked for too long. The dust in my mind started to lift. I realized how much of myself I'd compressed to make that marriage work. How many things I had allowed to slide in the name of being supportive. I wasn't angry anymore, just awake. One afternoon, about 2 months after the papers were signed, I ran into one of her old music contacts, Mark, a sound engineer I used to collaborate with years ago. He looked surprised to see me. "Man, I heard things went south," he said carefully. "They did." He nodded, then added, "Just so you know, people saw through it." Her whole act. A lot of us didn't say anything at the time, but we saw how she used you. I figured, she ever find out you pulled the plug behind the scenes? I looked him dead in the eye. She figured it out, but too late to do anything about it. He laughed, not cruelly, just with the weariness of someone who's seen too many talented people get dragged down by the wrong ones. "You ever need a booth or a board?" he said. "Call me." I thanked him and kept walking. It was around then that I heard where she'd ended up. A friend of a friend had seen her performing at a bar, small place, dim lights, sticky floors, out in Jersey somewhere. No stage, just a mic stand near the jukebox. She sang mostly covers, from what I heard. Old ballads, stripped-down versions of pop songs. No original material. No audience that cared. It didn't make me feel triumphant. Just sad. Not for her, but for the part of me that had once believed so completely in a version of her that never existed. That kind of mourning takes longer to heal than heartbreak. I didn't tell anyone I'd heard about her gig. Didn't send anyone to record it. Didn't write a song about it. Some endings don't need encores. The real turning point came one night when I was walking home from a session, late, cold air stinging my face. I stopped in front of a small bakery that had just closed, its windows fogged from the inside. On the glass, someone had written with their finger, "You are not what they did to you." It wasn't meant for me, I know that, but I stood there for a long time anyway. The next day, I submitted my first fully credited solo album. 10 tracks, all mine. No collaborators. No noise from the sidelines. Just me. And when the release email hit my inbox, subject line, "Your album is now live," I sat back in my chair, closed my eyes, and let the silence surround me again. But this time, it felt like peace. Not absence. Peace. It's strange how quiet a house can be after someone leaves it for good. You start to notice the soft click of the fridge, the creak in the hallway floor, the wind tapping at the window pane like it's asking permission to come in. For the first time in a long time, those sounds didn't feel like reminders of absence. They felt like space finally being reclaimed. By the time spring rolled in, everything had settled. The legal documents were signed, our accounts fully separated, and her name was gone from everything that used to be ours. No more shared bills, no more emergency contacts, no more, "What's mine is yours." It was all mine now, my space, my routine, my silence. She didn't try to come back again. I thought maybe she would, after her world collapsed. But that second visit to the apartment must have been enough. Or maybe she finally understood that the man she married wasn't the same one who stood in front of her that day. That man was done being useful, done being quiet just to keep the peace, done being the springboard for someone else's ambition. I released the album in early May. No fanfare, no press push, just a clean upload to the usual platforms, a simple black and white cover art with the title Quiet When It Breaks. Within the first week, it started gaining traction. Nothing viral, nothing explosive, but word of mouth among artists spread. Musicians heard something in the melodies they connected with. The lyrics weren't angry, just sharp, thoughtful, laced with sorrow, but grounded in truth. People wrote to me. Track 3 helped me through my breakup. Felt like you wrote track 7 just for me. Who is this guy? Why haven't I heard of him before? I didn't answer those emails. Didn't need to. The music was speaking now. And that had always been the goal. Not fame, not revenge, just clarity. One night, I played an open mic, something I hadn't done in nearly a decade. A friend owned the venue and asked me to drop by, just for the experience. I brought my acoustic, tuned it by ear, and played a stripped-down version of the last track on the album, the one I'd written in a single sitting the day the divorce was finalized. It was called After You. The crowd was quiet. Not that awkward silence you get when no one's paying attention, but the kind of silence that leans in, that listens. When I strummed the last chord, nobody clapped for a few seconds. They just sat there, taking it in. Then, applause. Not wild, not theatrical, but warm. Real. Afterward, a woman approached me at the bar. Mid-30s, denim jacket, no makeup, eyes that looked like they'd seen some of the same things mine had. That last song, she said. It didn't feel like heartbreak. It wasn't, I said. It was the piece after. She smiled. You got more of those? I handed her a card with the album link and walked out into the night air. It was enough. A few weeks later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that she'd moved again. Somewhere out of state. Maybe Carolina, maybe Nevada, no one was sure. She'd stopped trying to salvage her music career and was working at a boutique clothing store. No more Instagram lives. No more tag producers. No more curated quotes. She was quiet now. Not peaceful. Just invisible. There was a time I might have wanted her to suffer. To crawl back. To apologize and say she'd been wrong about everything. But that version of me was gone. I didn't need her regret. I didn't want her pain. I just wanted to never feel that hollow, used-up version of myself again. And I didn't. The last loose end came in the form of an envelope. One of those formal ones with thick paper and a fancy return address. It was from a small local award committee for independent musicians. Someone had nominated Quiet When It Breaks for a regional album award. I wasn't going to win anything big. This wasn't the Grammys, but it was the first recognition I'd gotten that didn't have her name attached to it, didn't come through her connections, didn't ride anyone's coattails. I RSVP'd yes. When the night came, I wore a plain black suit. No date, no entourage, just me, the way it had started. The way it should have always been. They called my name about halfway through the event. Best Independent Debut. Quiet When It Breaks, by Jordan Lattimore. I stepped up, accepted the plaque, and said only one thing into the mic. Sometimes silence is the loudest thing you can say. Thank you. I walked off stage, straight past the crowd, past the tables, and out the door. The moon was full. The night was cold. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone who had been left behind. I felt like someone who had finally left. There was no one waiting at home. No texts buzzing in my pocket. No weight I didn't choose to carry. I unlocked my car, slid behind the wheel, and looked at the plaque in the passenger seat. It wasn't about the award. It was about the album. It wasn't about the album. It was about me. And I was whole again.